At the end of my recording PC video, I finished with a sneak peek of what's coming up in this episode. You will have noticed me putting the rack cases on server rails and then this strange box with 3 switches. When I originally purchased the rack case for my gaming PC, I also purchased the rails so I could mount it in my server rack. However, when they arrived, it dawned upon me that they wouldn't fit in my rack because I purchased an extra deep rack. A few months later, I was cleaning out my industrial shed so I could rent it out, and I located some offcuts of an older rack frame I had. With these, I was able to mount them 3/4 back into the rack. It was pretty straightforward, as all I needed to do was bolt them to the horizontal frame, and then this would allow me to install the rack rails. With this done, I was able to finally mount the gaming PC into the case. It's like it was meant to be all along. Noticing that these rack rails seemed pretty generic, it looked like they would also fit the streaming PC and recording PC rack cases. Well, I was right about the recording PC. The screw holes lined up on the side of the case, and I was able to mount the recording PC onto rack rails. As for the streaming PC, while they did fit the case, the rails did not seem to be able to hold the size of this case, and it just kept falling out of the rails. This was when I was testing it with the empty case before I had migrated the streaming PC into it. I still decided to migrate the streaming PC to the rack case. I just put it on a fixed shelf like it was already. No big loss here. With these PCs now rack mounted, there was one last thing to the setup I'd been missing. And that was, to turn on the PCs, I needed to unlock the door to enter the server room and power them on. From a previous computer build I did of a wall-mounted ITX case, I had made my own custom cable for the power switch, reset switch, power LED and hard disk drive LED, and I plan to do the same thing here, just longer. So I bought this small box to house the power switches and LEDs for the 3 PCs. I've decided I don't need a reset switch. The amount of time I've used it is minimal. You can see the spacing is about right with these 3 missile launch switch covers, so let's get them properly spaced out. First up, I'm going to cover the box with some blue builder's tape. This makes it easy for me to mark out the locations for the holes. After some quick maths determining the symmetrical layout of the switches, I was then able to ascertain the horizontal alignment of the power and hard drive LEDs that will be located above each switch. These are the LEDs I'm going to use. The clear one is actually blue that I'll use for power, and the red one for the hard disk drive LED. With all these holes marked out and clearly circled to identify where I need to drill, I get my drill press out and use the pin punch to direct the drill bit correctly. I first drill all 9 holes using the smallest drill bit to create a pilot hole, something you should do when possible to ensure accuracy. Time for a drill bit change to match the size of the LEDs. I'll also drill out the switch holes with this same drill bit. A step out your hole size also leads to more accurate hole positioning. A quick test sees the LEDs fitting in just nicely, not too tight and not too loose. For the switch holes, I step up the drill bit another time and then drill them out before jumping to the final size. After a quick vacuum and removal of the blue tape, let's test the switch placement and see how it looks. They all seem to fit nicely and position perfectly. It's coming along swimmingly. Next up, I put 2 of the LEDs in and they look bloody beautiful. Now that I've got the front-facing components installed, how am I going to wire these up and connect them back to the computer header pins? Well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. A network cable has 8 wires in it and I only need 6 wires per computer, so we're going to use RJ45 technology. Well, not literally, but physically. This is a 3-gang light switch mounting plate, which can also have RJ45 network mechs mounted into it. So, I'm going to wire up the mechs to the switches and LEDs and use a normal Cat6 network cable to get to the computer, and then another RJ45 mech at the other end wired up with a pin header block for the motherboard. Anyways, this mounting plate is a little too wide. I'm going to cut it using the table saw, so I use some blue tape to mark where. Well, it turns out my marking wasn't that accurate, and I ended up cutting too much, and it's too flimsy now. Luckily, I had a second plate, and being a little more careful this time, it is much sturdier. After looking at the placement for a while and putting one of the mechs into the plate, I measured up the size to determine how big of a hole I needed to cut in the back plate. Once again, using some blue paint markers tape to make it easier to mark out the hole, I ended up with something like this. With all this marked out, it's time to get the Dremel, and I set to work making the hole. As per all adventures with the Dremel and cutting holes, it takes a bit of time to get it just right, needing to test the fit and then grind away a bit more and then repeating until it fits just right. After making the hole and fitting all 3 mechs into the mounting plate, I size up where I need to drill 2 holes to hold the plate in place. This time I decided to just use a battery drill for these holes, as it's hard to fail here, and before you know it, the holes are done. The blue tape is removed and the mech plate is now mounted to the back plate of the switch box. The box is starting to take shape, so before going any further, it's time to properly align these missile launch switch covers, and to help with this, I'm going to use some double-sided tape. Once applied, I tighten the nuts up and make sure they're all aligned in the same orientation. Every little detail counts in a little box like this. For the cable wiring inside the box, I'm just going to be using the pairs inside Cat6 cable. So I cut 3 identically sized lengths and then remove the outer protective plastic shielding. For the power switch, I'll be using the green colour. Separating the twisted pairs first, I then strip the end of each wire and loop them through the hole on the switch post using the green-white wire here. I put a dab of flux on each wire and then solder them to the post. I repeat the same steps with the green wire on the other switch post as well. With the 6 wires soldered to the posts, I put a piece of heat shrink on each one and use the heat gun to shrink them down. Finally, I retwist the green-white pairs together again so I know which switch is which. For the blue power LEDs, I'm going to use the blue wires. I repeat the same process again, making sure that I use the same coloured wire on the anode and cathode legs of each LED. And then each wire gets the heat shrink treatment and retwisting. For the red hard drive LED, I'm going to use the orange wires. This is once again the same steps as the blue LED. I'll be honest, I wasn't happy with this soldering on as it took forever to solder anything, until I replaced the tip and it was instantly better. I only discovered this recently when fixing another cable, and I wish I'd tried this sooner, so that's my pro tip for today. With all the wires soldered, I go through and install the LEDs into their respective holes. Things are really starting to look nice and organised. So it's time to go to town with the punch down tool and connect the 3 sets of wires to each of the mechs. I've opted here to leave the wires this length instead of shortening them. I prefer the extra slack as it makes it easier to work on the box in the future when it's open. Who knows what I might add to the box in the future. With a bit of positioning and squishing, everything seems to fit in okay. So let's put the screws in and see how it looks. I'm really happy how it has turned out. It looks great and has a nice tactile feel about it. To find out if the box works, I need to create the cable which connects to the header block on the motherboard. I already have a cable made up that I've used in the past. Specifically, it's for my streaming PC motherboard. So all I need to do is terminate the wires on the cable to another RJ45 mech matching the pinout used in the switch box. I actually made this switch box before I migrated my streaming PC into a rack case, so you can see me testing it here in its original Fantex Enthoo Evolve Mini ITX case. With a very short Cat6 network cable connecting the switch box to the motherboard cable mech, I flick the switch and it springs to life. And yes, the blue LED really is that bright. After waiting for what seems like forever, the hard drive light showed activity and everything springs to life. Success! I'm very happy this is working as intended. I still need to create motherboard header cables for the gaming PC and the recording PC, so I pull out my bag of appropriate cables and these old CD-ROM audio cables are exactly what I need. With the two 4-pin connectors taped back to back, all I need to do is match the pin layout on the gaming PC motherboard header for the power switch, power LED and hard disk drive LED. I even create fancy labels to put on the connector block so I know where it connects to on the motherboard. These header leads are a bit short, so I extended them with some more Cat6 network cable. The Cat6 extension also makes it easier for me to identify where the wire pairs terminate on the RJ45 mech. I then repeated these same steps again for the recording PC. Now to install these cables. For the recording PC, there is this round cutout, and once removed, the RJ45 mech fits in here nicely. So much so, I'm mounting the mech to a 1-gang architrave plate. Inside, I route the cable around the case and connect it to the motherboard header, and this one is done. For the gaming PC, there is a serial port cutout. This isn't large enough for the mech to sit inside it, so I decided instead to zip tie the mech inside of the case and then run the Cat6 cable from the switch box into the case and connect it to the mech. Now I could have just made a cable that connected directly to the motherboard header, but by using the RJ45 mech, it allows me to quickly disconnect and reconnect it without thinking. And this was also the same case for the streaming PC, using the serial port cutout and zip tying the mech inside of the case. To mount the switch box to my desk, I'm using these brackets. I'm going to mount it underneath the box, and this is pretty straightforward by drilling a few holes and bolting the bracket on. The other bracket is bolted to this one, and then it will be screwed to the underneath of the desk. So with the switch box permanently mounted to my desk and the cables run from the box to the 3 PCs, I'm ready to take it for its first test drive. I really like the experience it provides. Flipping up the missile launch switch covers followed by the clicking of the toggle switch has a real special feel about it. Being able to turn on any one of these 3 PCs while sitting at my desk is super handy, and also knowing if they are currently turned on or off is really helpful, especially when I don't have a monitor for the recording PC in this room. I hope you've enjoyed another behind the scenes video of how my computer setup works. This series of videos has been in the making for about 6 months, as I've wanted them to all be complete so I could release them closely together. Don't forget you can catch me streaming live on Twitch, and I post these streams to YouTube as well. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're doing well, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!